The offense can essentially dictate where the rim protection comes from and attack defenses no matter how they're guarding you. And not necessarily because it's flashy, but because it's flexible.
The scoring factor on 3. 1, 2, 3, scoring factory.
What's going on, everybody? Coach Kevin with the Scoring Factory, back with episode 25 of our breakdown series. Today we're talking about horns, so let's get right into it. There are very few alignments in basketball that give you as many answers as horns. 2 players at the elbows, spacing on both sides, the ball in the middle of the floor. On the surface, it looks simple and almost outdated. But horns has survived every era of basketball for a reason. It's used by college programs, NBA teams, international offenses, and not necessarily because it's flashy, but because it's flexible. Horns lets you play through your best player, disguise actions, flow into multiple options, and attack defenses no matter how they're guarding you. So today we're going to break down why horns is still one of the most powerful offensive alignments in the game and how teams get everything they want out of it. Instead of treating horns as a single play, it's better to think of it as a template. One of the biggest reasons it's so effective is what it does to rim protection. When you start in horns, there's often no true low man on the floor. Your big is mostly lifted and the corners are occupied. That immediately puts pressure on the defense to decide who's going to protect the rim. And that's where horns really shines. Based on the action you choose to run, whether that's a ball screen, a handoff, a dive, or a slip, the offense can essentially dictate where the rim protection comes from instead of reacting to it. So let's get into the film and look at how teams use horns to manipulate help, force rotations, and create advantages from the very first action. Here's Michigan State running one of their favorite sets out of their horns alignment. So as you can see, we have our horns alignment here with 2 at the elbows and then our 2 spaced in the corners. So what this does is inherently put stress on these 2 defenders because they have to guard the pass to the shooter in the corner, but they also want to help out on any action that's happening in here with the horns. So this is a horns flare set. So as Fears, the point guard, is going to start dribbling to this side, you're going to see Cohen Carr, who is this part of the horns, flare out and come off a screen. So he's going to ghost this screen or slip out of this screen and then flare as he receives a screen from the other horn. This leaves the pass to Carr wide open and he's able to get downhill and finishes this off with a dunk. So here's Nebraska actually running the exact same set against Michigan State, funny enough. So as this player goes to set this ghost screen, they're running this for a shooter and not for a driver. So instead of coming here ghosting and looking to attack off the catch, they're going to look for this shot. But it goes to show all of the different variations that you can run out of the same alignment and even the same action for your different players. So here's another example of a team that's going to run the exact same action out of the exact same alignment and still get a different result that is successful. So Memphis, again, is going to act like they're setting a screen and then flare it out here. Now watch our help defender and where their eyes go. So they're assuming that the action is going to be happening somewhere in here with the horns. But now this was all just a setup to get the back door cut on what is now an empty side, and it leads to a wide open dunk. Again, here's another example. We're going to see horns again, and we're going to run this flare action out of a ghost screen. But now, instead of even looking for the passer as we ghost, this is really just turning into an isolation opportunity for our best player. So now, instead of looking for any action, this just creates a huge gap to drive for our best player, and we get downhill, and it's an easy bucket. Another action that teams really love to run out of horns alignment is a stagger for the shooter in the corner. So watch, as our ball handler here is going to come off of this screen from that side of the horns, he's going to dribble this way, which is going to trigger both of the bigs to go set this stagger screen for our shooter in the corner. Now, as this plays out, you're going to see that we end up getting an open look for presumably a really good shooter. But if you look at the subtleties of the play and why this was able to get such an open look, it's because of the horns alignment. Watch this help side defender the entire time. So as the ball is brought over to this side of the floor, it forces him to take a step towards the midline because that's where the action is. That's what he's being taught to do. However, as he takes that step over, now he's in a much more difficult position to guard the stagger screens coming for the shooter. What it does is it forces him to go under this first screen. Ideally, you don't want to go under when you're guarding a shooter on any action ever, but because he has to go under that first screen, it gives him a second late, and now the shooter is catching and shooting without a contest, and that's an easy three. Here's Hawaii running a really similar action, but it starts with a different trigger. Instead of the big going to set this screen and the ball handler dribbling off to trigger these two staggers, what ends up happening is the guard here is actually going to throw this entry pass to the elbow, and then he is going to be the second part of the stagger screen going for the shooter in the corner. So as the play develops, we're going to see we get to the same action here with this double stagger, but that's not even the real action. What we're really looking for is to get this defender to take his eyes to the ball or his eyes to the action on the other side, because what this play is actually drawn up for is to get this backdoor cut, which is wide open, and it's an easy dunk. The third action, and what we would call the most modern action that teams love to use out of horns, is zoom. So there's a lot of really creative ways to get into it. I'm going to show you a couple here. So as Northwestern sets this screen out of their horns alignment, we come off the screen and we're going to pitch it back to the big. That's going to trigger the other horn to go set this pin down screen so that we can come into a handoff here, which is what we call zoom, a pin down into a handoff. So as this develops, what you're going to see is that pin down into a handoff. We're able to get downhill, and Northwestern actually runs a guy through to clear out a little bit of help if they want, but they end up getting the layup. We don't need it. Easy bucket. Here's Clemson running their twist on it, and it actually results in a fake zoom. So it starts the same. We're going to get the screen. We're going to come off the screen. And then as we come off the screen, we're going to pitch it back to the big. But now, as you would expect, we would get a down screen and then come get the handoff. But that's exactly what the defense is expecting here. So instead, this player is going to take 2 steps this way and then turn around and actually just get the handoff himself. You can see his defender is fully ready to go chase down here to guard an action out of a pin down screen. But he's not ready for his guy to turn and go get the handoff himself. It gets him a step behind, and at high levels, that's all you need. Here's Davidson running their version of it, but instead of getting a screen from this big here and then coming off and pitching it back, they're actually just going to start and cut out some of the fluff and just enter it directly to the big. So as this is entered, we fake a handoff, and now we're into our zoom action. But take a look at the read by 35. As he goes to set the screen, he can feel that his man has already pre-switched this and is already thinking about guarding number 1 as he goes off of this screen. So instead, what happens is the big is just going to slip out, and because this is on an empty side, there is absolutely no help, and it's an open dunk. Here's a really creative take on this from Colgate. They're going to throw it and enter it to one of the horns, but instead of going and faking the handoff, they're actually going to run off the other side and lead into what's going to turn into double zoom, where both of these guys are going to set what really looks like a stagger, but is going to turn into more of a zoom action. So we get both of these screens. Now we get the handoff. You can see that the defender had to go over because it's a good shooter. And now everyone is in scramble. It draws more help than it should, and we get the kick out to a good shooter for an open 3. So that's what makes horns so valuable. It's not about running one perfect set. It's about starting in a place where you have options. Horns gives you spacing, balance, and built-in counters, which is why it works at every level of basketball. Whether you're coaching youth, high school, college, or just trying to understand what you're watching on TV, horns is a reminder that great offense doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be connected. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment what you want to see next. Follow us on our social medias at The Scoring Factory. And as always, I will see everybody in the next video.